You're listening to WGSN-DB, Going Solo Network, Singles Talk Radio channel, where we take a lighthearted and candid approach to discussions on the journey of relationship loss, divorce, parenting, being single, relationships building, dating, and yes, sex. Join our listeners and begin living your best life.
Welcome to Divorce, Dating, and Empowered Living with your host, Rosalind Sedacca. Join Rosalind each week on a journey toward overcoming life's many challenges to achieve peace, empowerment, and positive transformation. It's time to relax, unwind, and transform your life with Rosalind Sedacca.
Hello, everyone. This is Rosalind Sedacca, and you're listening to WGSN-DB, the Going Solo Network, and our show is Divorce, Dating, and Empowered Living with Rosalind Sedacca. As you know, I'm founder of the Child-Centered Divorce Network, a divorce and co-parenting coach, and every week we talk to guest experts about issues that are related to divorce, life after divorce, and being empowered and feeling your best self. And today I'm very excited and proud to introduce you to a guest who is going to be able to talk about a lot of those topics all at one time, and he's Dr. Ronald Mann. Dr. Mann has a vast background and experience in helping others awaken to the true realization of their deeper self at both a psychological and spiritual level. He's practiced as a clinical psychologist for more than 30 years, and provided leadership training and executive coaching worldwide, and he's written 6 books, one of which was on the LA Times Healthy Bestsellers list. So given his intuitive insight, wisdom, and energetic healing ability, his work has been having a profound impact on people around the world, and he's currently the owner and CEO of the Love Factor Inventory. So welcome, Dr. Mann.
Thank you.
I'm very excited to talk to you about relationships since you are CEO of the Love Factor Inventory, and obviously everyone who has had a divorce, and especially parents who've been divorced, are a little concerned and apprehensive when starting new relationships. And there's a lot of baggage that we're carrying with us, and we want to not repeat the old patterns, and yet we see that too frequently. So I wanted to start with a big question, but a very important question that everyone wants to ask, and that is, what goes wrong in our relationships?
Well, it's an important question, Rosalind. And generally what happens is people become so consumed by their own needs and desires that they end up feeling hurt, blaming the other person, and having conflicts. And what they don't understand is that life is a process of development, both psychologically and spiritually. That's part of what we're doing here. And we are brought together sometimes by magnetic draws based upon our subconscious needs and desires. We attract people that embody and recreate some of our earliest childhood traumas or hurts. And so instead of trying to work together, kind of see the problem as your common dilemma, working together, people polarize and start blaming each other, not realizing that part of the work of a relationship is to heal these wounds, learn how to get out of your own way, care about the other person unconditionally, which is very hard to do, and work to develop more compassion, more forgiveness, more understanding, as opposed to thinking, well, he or she's not doing this, they're not doing that, they're not meeting my needs, and it's like people get hurt and they go into reaction. As a psychologist, when I worked with couples who were getting divorced, sometimes the level of vitriol, anger, and contempt for each other was astounding. I mean, sometimes I was speechless. How vicious people could be with each other because they feel so hurt, and they don't deal with the hurt. They just quickly go into anger and retaliation. So I don't know if that answers the question well enough, but it's some basic stuff that goes wrong.
Yeah, and unfortunately it seems to go wrong most of the time in relationships that ending, because it's easier to say it was all the other person's problem and fault, and if I move on and change partners, then life is going to be better for me. But that isn't what happens, is it?
No, it's not. I mean, there's a great saying I like, you take yourself with you wherever you go. So if you change your partners, you change your home, you change your job, you change your state of residence, you're still there. Doesn't matter where you go or what you're trying to do to change your outer circumstance, who you are remains the same. And you will recreate whatever issues you have. So just changing a partner, cashing in on a new one, thinking a newer model is going to help, will not solve your problems.
Yeah, and we hear that all the time. We see it all the time, and yet we blindly think that it's going to be different this time around, and we keep making the same mistakes over and over again.
Well, we do, and unfortunately, the value of introspection and personal development is not embraced by enough people. Some people do, and they kind of rise to the surface of their capacity to relate to people, to serve, make the world a better place. But too many people just ignore what's going on inside of them. They don't introspect. They don't use their own given talents to reflect on how they feel, how they think, where these things came from, and use the methods that are clearly available to everybody in the world: psychotherapy, meditation, spiritual practice, coaching. I mean, there's lots of things that we can do to help improve our situation, but people don't use those enough.
Yeah, they involve effort, and we live in an instant society.
That's true, and it's a little worse than it was when I was younger, especially with all of the technology. It's very difficult to get somebody to have a conversation. Everybody wants to text. Mm-hmm. And how much can you say in a text? It's brief, and any digital message, email or text, does not adequately express the emotion that goes into whatever is being said. And that's the most important thing. What's the feeling and what's being communicated? You can read something, but you're going to project your own stuff into that content because you have no idea how the other person's actually feeling.
I totally agree. So clients that I work with, so often I hear this question: why do I keep choosing the wrong partner? And what's the answer?
Well, and I mentioned it, kind of related to it. We keep choosing the wrong partner because we haven't resolved whatever issues we have within us. And so we unconsciously attract and go after the person that will recreate those issues in an interpersonal way because we never resolve them in an interpsychic way.
Again, it takes effort, and few people want to put that effort into something as significant as a relationship, and yet they see the patterns repeating, and they just shrug it off and continue doing the same thing again and again.
Well, they do. You know, at some point we can talk about this instrument that I developed years ago called the Love Factor Inventory, and it's designed to help answer that issue that you just brought up, that it's hard work, right? How do I know what's going on? I go see a therapist, it's time, it's money. This test is designed to help people get a very quick answer to those questions, like what's going on with me? If I'm having problems in a relationship, what am I bringing to the table that's creating these problems? So it's a mirror. And you can then figure out, okay, so if these are the issues, what do I need to do to change?
Those are some profoundly important questions. Why don't we start right now and let me ask you that? What is the Love Factor Inventory?
It's a test that measures people's ability to develop and sustain intimate personal relationships. It has a variety of scales: compassion, trust, psychological adjustment, sensitivity, spirituality, just to name a few. There's more. And it was developed in a national study. I gave it to a few thousand people across the United States. So it's very accurate. The research behind it is sound. And it gives you a quick insight based on how you compare to the population across the United States who took it. So it's a great tool. It's not the end, it's the beginning. It'll give you information, help set you on a path of discovery, and then with a therapist or a coach or perhaps on your own, you can then find solutions and ways to work on your issues. The actual instrument has a 28-page interpretive report that comes with it and a ton of information, suggestions, books, things to do, processes, meditation, all kinds of stuff to help you. And I've trained professional coaches to have in a network, so if somebody took the test and they wanted some help, there's some resources of people who really understand this instrument and how to use it in a coaching capacity.
So taking the test is step one, but most important is interpreting the test in meaningful ways for yourself, right?
That's right, and doing something about it. And it's one thing to get the information, but if you don't act on it, not much is going to happen. The wonderful thing about this test, it almost becomes a structured interview. There's a number of scales, and in the interpretive part, you can look at each scale and see how you responded. There's 124 items on this test, so it's not a quick thing where you answer 10 questions and you get all this information. That's nonsense. You can't get depth information. People say, it takes too long. Well, it takes 15 minutes to answer 124 items. So if you're not willing to invest 15 minutes into your life, then I can't do much to help you. So out of these 124 items, about 10 of them are in each scale. So you look at how you responded to those items, and very quickly it takes you deep into whatever your issues might be, because generally our problems come from what we don't know. You can't fix what you don't know. And so people will say, yes, I'm very trusting. And then they take the test, and one of the items on the test that relate to trust is, do you trust men? No. Say, well, if you're very trusting, but you're telling me you don't trust men, then I'm a little confused here. So then as your coach, I said, so tell me, why did you say you don't trust men? And all of a sudden, we're having an extended conversation about what's happened in the past. How did you get hurt? How did your father treat you? And things that relate to their current level of trust. It's a profound and a quick way to get into deep issues.
That's fabulous. And that's something that can be accessed online?
Yes. I republished it this year, and it's at the lovefactorinventory.com. Some people say factory. It's not a factory. It's the lovefactorinventory.com. You can take it online. Costs $99.95, normal price for an individual. There's also a couples version, which is very interesting. It comes out of the 360 model in the corporate world, where people would rate themselves and then have other people rate them and see the difference between their self-perception and other people's perceptions. Well, there's a couples version where you and I are a couple. I rate me, you rate you. Then I rate how I perceive you, and you rate how you perceive me. So now we have a ton of information about our own self-perceptions and how we perceive the other and the difference between them. So it opens up the possibility for people to talk in a more structured way that hopefully can lead to positive discussions and greater insight and greater understanding. Sometimes if you leave people alone just to talk, it gets pretty negative pretty fast.
I love that. And there's something I want to ask you about that, but we're going to take a quick break. This is WGSN-DB, the Going Solo Network, and we're listening to Dr. Ronald Mann on divorce, dating, and empowered living. We'll be right back.
Welcome to GoingSoloTravelers.com. Going Solo Travelers is about connecting, making new friends, exploring, and enjoying new fun times together. Laughter and the excitement of seeing and exploring something new creates memories that will last forever. Come join us on GoingSoloTravelers.com.
Okay, we're back. This is Rosalind Sedacca with Divorce, Dating, and Empowered Living on WGSN-DB, the Going Solo Network. We're talking to Dr. Ronald Mann, and he is the creator of the Love Factor Inventory, and we were just talking about that test, and I love the concept of both partners in a relationship taking the inventory test and then assessing it and learning not only about themselves but about how the parts they play in the relationship based on this test. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. It's a profound process, really, because you have a couple, and even today with Zoom and other digital ways, you're having a meeting. And so one person gets coached on their responses. We go through it and understand why they said what they said. The other person is listening. So hopefully they're learning some new things that were not discussed before. So their job is to listen attentively and not to get involved and interject, but to learn as much as they can about their partner. So each person does that. That alone can lead to quite a discussion, because oftentimes someone will say, well, this is how I behave. And you say, well, what do you think the impact of that is on your partner, on your husband or your wife? Say, well, I think it does this, and then you can ask the other person, how does that make you feel? What happens when he or she behaves that or treats you that way? So you're having a very quick dive deep conversation about key elements, because these questions aren't kind of surface questions. These are deep, profound questions that people say, yes, I agree, or I don't agree, it sounds like me, not so much. And after that process, then people can say, well, you describe yourself this way, but this is how your mate sees you, or your partner. You think you're this way, but they see you, and there's a big gap there. Well, what do you think's going on? So then a good therapist coach can guide somebody through that discussion where they can compare perceptions. And hopefully it becomes a process of deeper exploration, deeper understanding, which leads to more compassion, hopefully forgiveness as they understand why people do what they do, and brings people closer together through the sharing of that. Now, sometimes people are just not compatible. I mean, that's the reality, and not all divorce is bad. Sometimes it's a healthy thing to kind of make a decision to say, well, this relationship really, at this point, whatever got us together, it doesn't seem to make sense for us to stay together. That information can help people separate in a more loving, supportive kind of way, rather than blaming each other. Is just to see, well, we have differences, and these differences seem to be insurmountable. Maybe the most kind thing we can do to each other is separate.
Mm-hmm. I agree, and we focus a lot on that at the Child-Centered Divorce Network. But in other cases, the relationship can be reevaluated and healed if both partners are willing to take responsibility for the part they played in the relationship. Is that right?
I think it is. If people are willing to be open and honest, and they have a desire. I mean, your intention is important. If your desire is to try to make this thing work and see if that's even possible, then having that positive intention can help create an environment that's conducive to having these kinds of conversations. It's also a great tool for people who are thinking of getting married or just meeting somebody.
Mm-hmm.
You get past the illusion pretty quickly of who you think this person is and find out whether they're even a likely candidate to be in a relationship. have you made a good choice, or have you just unconsciously picked somebody who's got issues that are going to come up? So it's good before, during, and after.
I love that facet of it, especially for people who have been divorced, who've gone through a breakup, and you definitely want to be more insightful when you're making another decision regarding a love partner. So what a great opportunity to take this into account and learn some important, insightful lessons before you move ahead. Why don't we take a moment now and you could tell people how they can find you and what you have available for them.
Sure. Thanks for the opportunity. There's a couple ways. You could go to this site called lovefactorinventory.com, and you'll see the instrument, and there's a contact form there. I also have another site called Ron Mann, just my name, RONMANN.com, that has a lot of information about personal development, spiritual development, meditation, audio programs. That site's been around for 30 years. Or people could email me at drmann@lovefactorinventory.com. And we could set up Zoom calls, and I'm happy to give people a free initial conversation to help them figure out what exactly do they want to do.
That sounds great. Wonderful. Well, I hope our listeners will take advantage of those opportunities. And in the brief time we have left, I wanted to give you an opportunity to share with us some of the most important takeaways of our conversation about being in relationships and having a more conscious approach to creating and choosing a healthy relationship partner and being a healthy relationship partner. What's your best advice?
I think my best advice is take it as a sacred process. We don't fall in love by chance. There are reasons that we're attracted to people. And if we honor that in a sacred way, don't take it for granted. Don't say things that are going to be hurtful because you'll regret it. Don't damage what you were given. Honor it, cherish it, and do the work to keep that space an open-hearted, compassionate, loving space. And there's a greater chance you'll have a successful relationship. Every relationship gets tested. And it's how we deal with those difficult times that will determine whether things continue or not. We need to be good friends with each other. And just feeling in love is not enough. We need to treat each other well. Kindness, respect, understanding, listening. And those things can help us have happy, successful relationships and be good models for our children.
Excellent. I like the way you mentioned that every relationship gets tested, because I think in some ways we're very immature in our culture, and we have this fairy tale perspective about what a relationship is like, and as soon as we bump into conflict and disagreement, people are often saying, I made a mistake and I'm moving elsewhere, and they're oblivious to the fact of what you said when we started the conversation, that we take ourselves with us in every relationship at all times. So I think we need to be mindful of the fact that relationships are going to create conflict, and it's how we approach that that's going to be the test of how successful we are in our relationship. Is that so?
I think that's true in every aspect of life. Perseverance, determination, and never giving up pays off. Nothing comes easily. Anything that's really good oftentimes takes some work to achieve. And so if we realize that, honor that, and choose to stick with it and work through issues, we'll come out stronger and closer on the other side.
Well, absolutely. I think that's wonderful advice. I am so glad we had an opportunity to talk to you. I wish we had more time to go deeper into all of this, but I'm hoping our listeners will visit you at the lovefactorinventory.com and reach out to Dr. Ronald Mann, M-A-N-N, so that they can take advantage of resources that you have available on your other website, and that you will connect with them via email as well. So thank you, Dr. Mann, for talking with me today. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. My pleasure. Thanks so much.
So you've been listening to Rosalind Sedacca with Divorce, Dating, and Empowered Living. And as you know, you could find my own resources at childcentereddivorce.com. We have several ebooks, e-courses, and programs to help you before, during, and long after divorce. And this is WGSN-DB, the Going Solo Network, and I hope you'll join us next time. Bye-bye for now.
You're listening to WGSN-DB, Going Solo Network, Singles Talk Radio channel, where we take a lighthearted and candid approach to discussions on the journey of relationship loss, divorce, parenting, being single, relationships building, dating, and yes, sex. Join our listeners and begin living your best life.